Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Stormworks. We are back working on our submarine, and today we are going to do a little bit less technical stuff, and we're just going to get right into the building, and we're just going to do some of the interior. So most of the reactor is kind of set up, and our ballast is more or less where it needs to be. So I think it's about time we start working on some of the floor plan. And that's pretty much the only plan we have for today. So really what I'm doing here is I'm making a little stairwell down into the reactor room. This is not going to have a radiation barrier, so it's going to be more of a kind of like an emergency exit, really. You wouldn't really want to have it open, just again because there's no airlock, there's no radiation barrier, there's nothing like that. So you wouldn't want to leave it open, but I do want to have this up here because it is a much quicker way to get up and into the conning tower, which is how you get out of the sub. So in an emergency, really, you would want this route. It would be much faster than backtracking, going around, finding a different stairwell, and then coming up. And if you're in a submarine and bad things start happening, I would imagine they don't take too long for them to get really, really bad. So I wanted to have a secondary exit to the reactor room. Anyways, enough of that. I'm going to get some railings into here, and then the rest of the episode, we are going to kind of, like I said, before, we're going to just do interior work. And I'm not going to get too much of the interior done, but we're just going to, I guess, yap a little bit, and we'll kind of talk about some of the things we want to do with the sub. This build has been a little bit slower for me, so I do apologize. I think if you guys are regular viewers, you know my life has been a little crazy lately, so it is slowly getting back to normal, and with that, hopefully my schedule. But yeah. Anyways, we got this railing in, and I think that railing looks pretty nice, and the stairwell's nice and compact, so more or less, this is all set. I'll probably go back and add some lighting and a couple other little details here, but that looks good for now. And I'm not really going to follow the normal layout of a submarine like you would normally see anyways, so if you guys get upset about that, well, I'm sorry. But I am usually pretty good at interiors, so I think we're going to maximize the space pretty well in here. I do plan on obviously giving quite a lot of space up to the ICBMs and torpedoes and that kind of thing. But anyways, while I was off camera, I made these little indicator lights. They are all hooked up individually, and they are just RGB indicators hooked up to the temperature of the fuel rod that's in front of them. And that is just a quick, easy visual way for you to tell if it is running, warming up, or if it's too hot. So basically it'll blink while it's warming up, and then when it gets cold, it'll be blue, and then once it gets hot, it starts turning red. But enough of that. I'm going to try to figure out another entrance down here into the reactor room. This is a part of the ship that I would love to get sorted out, because once we get that and the command and control center in, the rest is really just going to be optional. But these two things are pretty hard set required. So what I am trying to do here is I'm trying to double wall everything, or this going into the reactor room. Like I mentioned earlier, I want to have some sort of barrier here for radiation just in case there is a leak. That way you can contain it from the rest of the sub. But enough of that. We're going to get into the time lapse with this one. I'm going to do it to you guys. I'm sorry. So we'll get some building done, and I will be back in just a few minutes. All right, well, we did get a good chunk done down in the reactor room, and you saw me argue with myself about Windows for about half the time. So if you made it through that, thank you, and you're welcome. But we're going to move on from that. I need to take a break from that wall. I don't know. I was struggling with that, but I am happy with the design we have. I do want some sort of, obviously, little reactor control room. But for now, I am kind of working on like the main floor, main entrance to the submarine right now. And so this is going to be really the landing that you come down from the conning tower in. So this is going to be, basically the main entrance to the ship. Not that that's really that important on a submarine, but because of that, I'm just trying to figure out the layout here, and then I'll work my way as we get further away from the entrances. We'll kind of work on those parts of the ship. But I want to make sure we do this part first. And I mentioned earlier in the episode that I'm not going to do a kind of conventional layout for the submarines. And this submarine, not submarines, but because of that, I'm going to put the control station right there. As you guys can see, the helm in the background and whatnot. It's kind of center mass on the ship on the top floor, which is a little strange, but it's also not anywhere near the conning tower. So you got to go down this hallway, and I want to make sure we get this hallway looking nice. Now, what I am going to do all over the submarine is I am going to add actual bulkheads. So this wall will be a bulkhead wall. And if you don't know what that means, essentially, this is going to be a barrier in case you are flooding. You can close this and keep the rest of the ship from flooding. Now, I am going to add one on the other side of this hallway as well. But just so you guys know, I do plan on putting these a little bit all over the submarine so you can close off areas to, try to save yourself, I guess. Kind of an important thing for a submarine. But yeah, so we're going to go from the little landing down there into a hallway. And this hallway is essentially going to direct you into the main area on this floor, which is going to be command and control. Behind command and control, we are going to have a meeting room, and then right beyond this hallway, we will have a stairwell down into the lower floors as well. So kind of probably a lot of traffic, a lot of time spent in here, and you'll notice that the hallway is kind of placed really offset. So on the left side there, we are going to have some rooms probably for the commanding officer and or the first officer, and then to the right of that, we are going to have a meeting room, mission planning, that kind of thing. But currently, this is what it is looking like. So I'm just going to get this spawned in, and we'll walk around, show you guys how it's looking so far. Like I said, you don't really want to use that door back there, but you'll see me use it all the time. And then, like I said, on the left there, we'll have some bunk rooms. Really tiny bunk rooms. Of course, we're on a submarine, nothing comfortable. Everything's going to be functional. Honestly, the command and control is probably going to be one of the roomier parts of this ship, which is funny, but it's also does make sense if you think about it. So I'm just going to get these doors turned around, and we'll come back and we'll make all of this look a lot nicer later. But for now, I'm just trying to get kind of the bones of the structure in, and then we'll come back and we'll detail some stuff. Anyways, enough of that. We're done with the building in this episode. We'll come back to all that later. First, I'm going to show you the fancy new lights as the reactor is warming up. You can see. So they warm up. Obviously, the center warms up the fastest, and then they will all slowly change color. And I'm sure it's probably a little tricky for your eyes to pick up, but you can see that there is a slight gradient going on. And that'll just, obviously, as they get warmer, they get more and more red. But yeah. So that is all looking pretty good, and we did throw some windows on the side of the reactor. I'll probably get rid of those later, and I got to change and clean up the rest of these buttons. But for the most part, mechanically, this is all exactly what we need. It's running well. We make plenty of power. You can see it's just going to keep spooling up and up and up and up. And yeah, this thing is very, very fast. So I'm sure I've talked about that in the other episodes, but I guess we'll give it a spin. Let me start pumping some ballast in, and we'll get our tanks slowly filling. And when I say slowly, I mean pretty slowly. Something we got to go back and work on for sure. But you guys can see it does have a hybrid mode, so when the reactor isn't spooling, you can run off of electric power, and then if you want, you can also switch. But I do have this thing loaded up with some of our weapons, and we will kind of be detailing these up a lot more in a later episode, but might as well go ahead and give these a fire for fun. Why not? They're all hooked up to this, so we just launch them all. Looks like there's probably a couple stuck in the tubes, of course, that's just classic Stormworks, and they're all going to be super wonky, as you can see, but they'll get to where they need to go for sure. So you can see they're all headed on over to the waypoint, which is about 7 kilometers away. Now, these missiles do have a range that is over 10 times that. So last time I tested, you could fire from the arid to the Arctic, but I did remove a little bit of fuel, so that could be wrong now. I do need to test that, but I can tell you it's well over 50 kilometers. I don't know if you can go from, end of the map to end of the map, but well over 50 kilometers. And you can see they are all coming in towards us right now. Now, I have talked about these a little bit in the past, but essentially they are going to take a javelin approach. And if you don't know what that is, essentially they're going to go up and then straight back down. Now, when they come back down, they are not aiming for the GPS point anymore. They're actually searching with a radar. So they're not super accurate unless you have an actual physics body to detect. But you can see they're also not horribly inaccurate. I also do have a couple different versions of those, and they all have different flight paths. So I will have a video where we talk about the weapons a lot more in depth, but for now we have those. We have some EMPs, we have some cruise missiles, we have some dirty bombs, a little bit of everything. I think there's 5 or 6 different versions, and again, we'll go over all of them, but not yet. I want to make sure a lot more of the systems are set up. But now that we've waited a little bit, we should have enough ballast in the sub to start sinking. So I'm just going to slowly engage our direct drive. And the weight is a little off now because we launched a bunch of missiles, but I'm working on all of that. The control systems aren't really in the sub yet. We're just kind of going off of pure thrust and a few rudders. So let me get this thing actually into the water, and we're not going to sink straight, of course, but I'm going to try to get it moving as fast as I can, and you guys can see right there, just 40 knots already, but having a really hard time getting this thing into the water right now, as you can see. So I think part of it is the submarine the shape of the submarine is producing lift, so it wants to stay up out of the water. I think another part of it is just me being an idiot and not really knowing how submarines work. And then I think the third is kind of a combination of all of them, as well as this thing is not heavy enough because there's no interior in it yet. I think once I get the interior in it, torpedoes in the front especially, it'll be a lot easier to get this thing to stay under the water. But for now, we got to fight with it a little bit, which, whatever, you'll have that. It's a work in progress. We're still working on it. So let me just sit here for a second, and there we go. Now we're actually under the water, and our nose isn't pointed towards the heavens. So let's see if we can get moving now, and just watch that dial. So we're already at 100 knots, and that's easily 120. And of course I smashed into the ground. But anyways, that is kind of your evidence, guys. That's all I got for you. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. Really appreciate the support. If you like the series, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I got a link down below to my Discord. I'll catch you all in the next episode. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.